So first of all, thank you very much for joining this webinar, and it's a pleasure welcome here that I can really give you my expertise and exposure to you guys for a learning curve. So let me introduce myself. Well, my name is BHUSHAN and I come from a data warehouse and BI background. I probably work for a couple of good companies in industry, and I'm there for last 15 years. My major role is BI consulting, data warehousing, modeling, client engagement, pre-sales, and a lot of times solution architecture. So that's the brief from the expertise level. I do a lot of data modeling as and when needed. I also work and behave as a consulting director for one of the company. So as and when the client needs, what is the role? It may be an architect, maybe a client engagement manager, or a solution architect expertise. So I also behave sometimes SME, subject matter expert, which I suggest to the consultant what actual requirement is and how probably we can help customer. The company which I work for is Nucleus, RBS, SAS, Central, HSBC, Hewitt, Oracle, and the last company which I was working with, Ruchisa Consulting Private Limited. By background, I'm an MCA gold medalist in 2001 batch. That's my background. So thanks a lot for giving us all the important introduction from all of you and all of places people joining us for this webinar. And I'm pleased to introduce ourselves as one of the great trainer out in the market. So let's begin the Informatica PowerCenter. So people who already have a data warehouse background, is always good to go ahead and understand more from what Informatica can give you better. And people being already from Informatica background, which has been working in, there would be add-on going to be this session. And during this session, if you have any question, please ask them, and then probably I may not be asked, answer you then, or we can have end of the session here. Okay, so without any further delay, I'm just trying to go and start the session here. So here we'll talk about Informatica 9, which is 9.6.1, which is the latest version 2015 February it's being introduced. So after this webinar, you'll probably get to know what is Informatica and their product suite. People who are already aware, that's two best. If they're not, then it's going to be add-on for them. Then definitely a PowerCenter designer, workflow manager and monitor, and we'll have Informatica domain and repository management. So there will be a couple of topics covering these all objectives. So as the few people are may aware that Informatica Corporation started in 1993, revenue of 2012 somewhere around 811.6 billion, and the percentage growth per year was 70% per year. Employee in 2012 was 2,810 plus, and there were 450 partners overall, and the customer were 5,000 overall, 82 countries. They were tremendous growing from 2005 to 2012. So basically, Informatica Corporation is the data integration software and services product company, and they build their product for these area in telecommunication, health, financial, insurance, and definitely in other vertical like governments. If it comes to Informatica products and their functionality, a lot of people already know that. For people who are new to Informatica, I would probably give an introduction here from Informatica products. So the product majorly focus in data integration, but what kind of integration they have, what kind of other products they are having it. So they have data integration and ETL. We'll talk about ETL is extract, transform, and load. Is a new concept overall if people are not aware from a data warehouse background, which we'll talk about more in detail later on here. Information lifecycle management, where you have information flowing from one to another lifecycle. Complex event processing. Data masking, data quality, data application, virtualization, master data management, and ultra messaging. So these are the products which Informatica comes with today, if you talk about 2015. And we'll definitely talk about a bit more when we actually get into more in detail. And the current version, as said, it's definitely in 2015, February, the 9.6.1, and hotfix 1 has come up. So to continue what you can see here today, at the screen, we have all the family of Informatica today in 2015. So as rightly said, and somebody have asked that how the Informatica is being integrated with cloud. So here is the cloud product. Informatica is the only one tool overall till today. They have a cloud server which handles the cloud data ETL over the cloud. So they have a cloud data integration product. They have a data quality product. They have a event processing product. They have a master data management product. And then you have B2B data exchange, whereas application lifecycle management is also there. It has a ultra messaging, and believe it or not, the maximum use is going to be enterprise data integration. That's the major use of Informatica. Let's talk about what are the projects, who the people, why we make it, projects, and who going to use that. So let's talk about any user, any project, any environment. What we're trying to come out with. Who is the user? So let's talk about a business user. How a business people will get benefited of Informatica product. So business needs some reports. How the reports comes up? Those are production data. So those has to be massaged, put it at one place, has to be do a KPI formulas. So those business come back and use those similar data. That's the benefit of Informatica, which business user and user can use it. Now, who is analyst? Somebody wants to analyze the data and get some kind of a business intelligence or some kind of a reporting. Maybe a kind of a MIS report or operational report, some sort of reporting which really helps to do the analysis. So Informatica will definitely integrate those data at one place to make an analyst working and get their questions to be solved. So there would be an architect. When you say an architect, why an architect need a data? So overall, any solution on the top of any application, an architect is important role who plays a complete architecture solution. So the architect needs to know what is the data and how's the data. That has to be done only when data is being integrated at one place. Now, who's the developer? The developer who developed the Informatica map, design, or data modeling and so on. So those are the users who been knowing it. And who's the data steward at the end? So you have to have a data steward who defines the data. That means what's going to be named as a character or salary as a numeric. Coming to a project. So what kind of projects? It says any project. What do you mean by any project? So what it's saying is it can be an analytics project where you have analysis in place. So data integration comes anyhow. You have to have data integrated and you can put them, massage them, do the calculations and get your analytics done. The next is application to application. So primarily what is happening, if you have a CRM and you have a finance data, you want to know who all are the top 5 customers, how's the behavior, how's the buying the behavior, and what are the sales comes across. So you have one data with customer master or customer information, whereas other application has the finance data. So data has to move from one to another. Such the application to application comes across. Next is business to business. It's quite a bit similar, but it talks about more from a business point of view, a functionality point of view. One function says a calculation, another function talks about KPI. So those needs to have again data, maybe input data, detailed data, summarized data. So whereas business to business comes in place. Data migration, as people know, a lot of time you upgrade versions from one to another. So data migration happens there. Data quality, let's talk about very often, and you know that a quality data is very much important in industry. So garbage in and garbage out, that's the people does it. So if there's no intelligence comes across where you're making your data as a qualitative, there's no use of the data. So probably you will say, no, I don't need this. Customer says, Mr. Vendor, this data we are not looking in. We're looking for a quality data. But actually the data coming from their production. So what happens, we'll have a transformations in Informatica, which helps to make the data more qualitative. As rightly said, somebody asked a big data integration. Yes, today big data is being there. So you have SDFS, which is Hadoop distributed file system. So how are you gonna put the data in SDFS? Informatica will help you to put your data in distributed language, right? A different way of the today's data putting in a file system and a column level data, which is NoSQL together. Bit of master data management. So as you know, if you have a customer, let's say my name is BHUSHAN and there's a INDRA IB and BHUSHAN. There's a 3 customer code is being generated, but I'm the single person. So if you want to search for me, each time you have to search different string, and then each time you'll have different codes, and that code's going to be 3 different books. So your finance, your billing, your SCM, your production, your manufacturing, wherever you say your customer are different, but actually we all 3 are same. So master data management makes you a unique, it's going to make you a unique code using going further as a mapping them, all 3. Information lifecycle, we'll talk about more bit here. This is more from one life to another life. They're proceeding with the life management cycle. So let's talk about which environment. So environment can be a departmental, so it's kind of a distributed, and then you also have an enterprise that you want to put everything at enterprise level, which is a company level. For example, SAP, for example, Oracle, for example, HP. If they want to do something, I'll give you a practical exposure. HSBC Bank, they had HSBC one HSBC project where they want to enterprise everything, all savings, all loans, all the software at one place on cloud. So that's one of the example. And next is cloud. As believe it or not, everybody wants to have a cloud today to save their infrastructure cost, the effort, the resources, and so many things. So you know what is the benefit of clouds. So you don't have to buy your own infrastructure. You have to simply give them an access, or you can take an access from the cloud infrastructure company. For example, Amazon, one of the popular one. Hadoop. So big data Hadoop is a process where you can do your large data entry and large file in a distributed environment than more than one system, more than one computers being coming together. So they work as a cluster. So how do you want to put three places at the data at the same time? So that's what Informatica will help you. And believe it or not, embedded is always there. So legacy, you cannot forget them, and it cannot go on. It has to be always there, and so people will take the data. Proceeding further from here, I'll not take much time for each of the slides. If it is needed, we'll put more time, but we can proceed if it needed. So PowerCenter, let's talk about a bit on them. So PowerCenter is basically a kind of an integration tool or a product which basically takes the data from a different source systems and put it at one place, do your daily operations, massage them, do the analysis, and get your target data at one place for the future use. As I mentioned, information lifecycle is a kind of software which any IT organization, specifically, they handle the data growth. They know how they can retire their legacy systems and take data at one place, and they can use as a sensitive data, and they can produce more information out of it. When it comes to complex event processing, it's basically a kind of an engine-based, rule-based event. So whenever the event comes, the software are very robust, and those basically event processing gives you a real-time alert. Those information, those data are very, very quick and very faster, whereas it has to be used Informatica to populate them. Very important topic is called data masking. So I believe a lot of people are already working today in a bigger company, and they know the importance of the confidentiality of the data. For example, in a bank, if you're the vendor from a TCS or from X company or any XYZ company and say, okay, look, man, Mr. Customer, Mr. Bank, I have a solution. If you can buy this, you can have the return of investment ROI of 50% of these areas. So it's okay, fine. You can show me your POC in a proof of concept where I can know what exactly your product can do. So your company come back and say, Mr. Customer, can you give us the data where I can show you real-time changes and ROI of your existing data? I can figure out what has been going wrong, good and bad to your organization today. So when it comes to a bank says, Mr. Vendor, we cannot give you a data, because it's a matter of security and confidentiality, and company will not allow you. What Informatica helps you to do the masking. So you have a face, top of the face, you have some other data coming in. Okay, Praveen asked me that, okay, can you take a real-time example of the ILM and CP? Yes, definitely we'll take at the end of the session. Praveen, thank you very much. Okay, so let's talk about a bit of more data quality. As already said, one of the quality data, you have a data profiling. For example, you have a space or you have a commas for any address. Let's take an example of new space Delhi, new Delhi, new dot Delhi. So when you do a search, it's an individual record coming into 3 different strings. So what you do is data profiling is there would be in a standard business rules written for profiling them, all 3 codes to be new space Delhi. So you have to use only new space Delhi for the string, and you get all your three records. So that's the quality, as we already discussed, is very important. Data replication, as I said, is being basically what you're doing is you have a production data and you want to replicate as it is the same data so that you can give an access to anybody else, and they should not access production data very often. So it's going to be a data replication with the data is agnostic, real-time transaction replication software, highly scalable, reliable, non-destructive to perform an operational system. So you have a production system, which is a OLTP system. There would be hardly going to be any kind of a disruption when you do a data replication. Data virtualization is very important concept today. So it's going to be data sourcing from different source system, and also it's a data federation. So they're using a data virtualization layer which really hides and handles the complexity which access the data underlying from different source systems, while the, what is a plus point, a benefit is data virtualization actually do not load data into the target table. They're using in somewhere in the middle layer, they have a memory, they have an in-memory, they have a flat file binary. They actually do not load the data in target system. That's the data virtualization. Whereas MDM, everybody knows that a product family delivers consolidated and reliable business critical data, also known as the master data. For example, customer, employee, product, those are always a master data. So having so many codes will not help you not undo the business needs. Whereas having one master code really ends up the all needs together. So ultra messaging is one of the next generation low latency messaging middleware product, which is basically a very highly extremely I would say extraordinary data available. 24/7 availability is there. Those are completely kind of a share memory and network basis, and it's basically a messaging system. So you must have heard Microsoft messaging queue. So this is one of them. Okay. So believe it or not, let's talk about more in the PowerCenter, because that's the area we have to talk about more and get to know more apart from the other products. That's definitely is important. So PowerCenter is basically a single unified enterprise data integration, which really helps you to take all your different sources and together the data comes at one place. You do massaging, you do data quality, and then you comes to a target where you do load your data, and finally you go for analysis or reporting. So it's called ETL, E for extract, which is reading different distinct source systems. It may be flat file, it may be a database, transform and load. So your transform is basically one form to another. So you have a source system data, and then you're making some changes in terms of, you're making a lower to upper, or making summarization of the salary which is being paid to the employee, or loading data finally to your database, which is a target database. Typically, we say target database. So what are the main advantage? Basically, it's going to be very robust. Today, Informatica have given you partitioning, parallelism, so many things are there, which really helps you to make your data volume load scalable and very fast. So it can be comes in both version, Unix and Windows, as a lot of people may not be knowing that. People only work in Windows. They prefer to be in Windows, but Informatica has both of the products together. So version history, as I already mentioned, it comes to the hotfix 2 in Feb 2015, and we'll have a little more discussion in the upcoming slides. For more information, please visit to informatica.com, where you get more information from the Informatica company voice. So let's talk about more from a PowerCenter architecture, which is SOA, which is service-oriented architecture. It's more from a service perspective than a processor perspective. So that's the benefit of the product architecture. And what are the aim is basically because it's more improved and more highly available. So that's the reason people are going on a services basis. So the service-oriented architecture is there where you can create all the services as and when you can, on and off. So that's the new version from the, always it helps you after the 9 onward. Approach, definitely re-engineering, underlying architecture has been made even so service-based. So every processes can be done as a services now. So let's talk about a bit here. A lot of people who are already aware and who work in Informatica, for them it's good that they understand what are the tools available and a single unified architecture. Let's talk about these are the provider. It can be XML, messaging, web services, packaged application like SAP Finance or Oracle Financials, relational and flat file, and definitely you have a mainframe systems, which is the older legacy system. So let's talk about a PowerCenter. PowerCenter client talks about a design, manage, and monitor. So design has a designer where you can go actually design ETL map, where you have a source, transform, and target, which is ETL. And then the manager is basically making those design to a task and to make them a flow, which is comes first, which is comes next. Workflow monitor really helps you to understand and monitor the workflow, which is the task is being there. So which are failure, which is success, how many goes to error, everything you can see from the monitor, and it also gives you the logs later on. When it comes to services framework, as I said, it's in a common SOA base. So I have a web services, integration services, and repository services. So these three services are very important to run the Informatica architecture. Whereas repository is basically metadata. We'll talk about it more in the upcoming slides. So what are the sources there? It can become the target and they can produce the same similar format, whatever you're using it. So if you're reading as XML and you want to publish XML, it is still possible here. Okay, so let's talk about PowerCenter architecture a little more. So you can see that a browser, this is a more like from administration point of view, and it has a server and client component. So this is basically a server component, whereas a repository attached to that, and whereas RDWM. So let's talk about which is repository manager, designer, then you got a workflow manager and monitor. So here is more detail: PowerCenter repository manager, designer, workflow manager, monitor, and this is the administration console, where you design, create the repository, integration services, repository services, and also manage all your metadata. Believe it or not, it's going to be a tool where you can do export, import, all the administration stuffs, migration stuffs. So to go further, what repository does, it manages repository, it basically retrieves, insert, update metadata. So a lot of people must be knowing what is metadata. If people does not know, let me give a kind of brief introduction of metadata. It talks about a data and data. So table name and table column name and size is actually talks about the name and the definition. It does not talks about the data of the table. So that's called metadata. So repository services keeps using, inserting and updating the metadata tables which Informatica creates when it goes for a repository creation. That's the architecture. Integration services, basically what you have made here to create repository or to create kind of a map, basically those runs by integration services. SAP BIDW and web services, these are the services being given additional adapter to the outside of the world. So let's talk about this is how a complete architecture should look like and what are the things comes across. So as you can see, all the kind of a client tools can communicate with ODBC, and then ODBC sources can have a native and ODBC directly with the domain communications. Whereas it has a repository, which is a kind of a database, and you have a domain metadata. So repository has a repository services, and definitely you have integration services, which has been running those ETL maps. And you have administration and security, which has been, again, as I said, is a browser-based kind of a web page or web portal where you can design and do the all administration stuffs. Okay. Going further, what is a domain and nodes? So the more or less, this is what the domain. Let's talk about a node. What is basically a node is? I'll give you a more brief here. So this domain is basically one Informatica server, which is a domain, and it can be multiple nodes. So it can be a kind of a normal node and gateway node. As you can see here, you have a manufacturing node, you have a sales node, and a finance node, whereas a gateway node communicates from the administration tool to all of the nodes together. So this is the place of administration browser where you people can request, and basically gateway nodes are primarily for request and services the nodes. So this is how the interaction happens. You can see here TCP/IP, which is in a web. You can see that the flow manager, workflow manager, and the monitor is there, which is being run by integration manager or services. Whereas this is repository and again designer. Okay, so there's a question has come up from Praveen. So each developer will have its own node. No, to answer your question is no, Praveen. It's the architecture being set up. It talks about a server, not from a designer. Each designer will have one service client, which is a PowerCenter client. So these are the Windows-based software where people will install only the client and get the server connectivity. You will have a user ID credential created by Informatica administration, which is here. And then you can use the PowerCenter client, which is you can see here as a designer. So most of the developer works in designer. Does it answer your question, Praveen? I believe I should. Thank you very much. Okay, so proceeding further, as I said, repository is kind of a metadata. It is again connected by ODBC and an API. So repository manager is one of the important topic, and what you can do with the repository manager, it has a complete metadata of all your development. It has a mapping, transformation, folder, connection, user privileges, all the detail where you can create, edit a folder, you can assign a permission, you can do a backup. You can also do export and import for a migration perspective, because a lot of people will have development, UAT, and production. So as you can talk about again, it's going to be brief. So here is a designer, you can see that. So each developer will work on designer tool. It's a Windows based designer tool where you'll be able to connect with the, your repository and integration services to your repository metadata with the help of your user being created by administrator. Okay, this looks like a kind of a designer where you can see that repository which is being already created. So you'll connect to the repository. I'll show you how. This is a kind of a designer. People who are already working in Informatica, they're very much familiar with the environment. People does not know, this is a kind of a designer tool where you actually design a development takes place. So 80 to 90% people work on this area where people do a development. So you can see that what are the things are there. So you have a source. Definitely, if you can see these folders, each folders basically has the source, target, cubes, dimensions, transformation, maplets. So this is a blank structure. So whenever you create a folder in your repository manager, when you connect to that, the blank templates will automatically there, which has no data unless you create them. So it will have a source, target, transformation, mapping, and other objects. So this is a folder list. You can directly go and select them. Couple of folders are there. So both way you can go left side where a tree is available, or you can drop and drop from the folders. Now here you have a mapping, which is a mapping name. This is the name of the mapping. It's M stand for mapping. This thing has CD2 effective date. Now this is a transformation toolbar. So all the transformations being already taken place. You can see that you have all the transformation here: filter, aggregation, expression, so on. And you have iconized mapping. So it can be also expand, but it can be put it in an iconized way where it's very easy and is very readable. Okay, so source analyzer where you can have a source, warehouse designer where you create your target, then you have transformation designer where you create your transformation reusable component. Maplet is a kind of one of the I would say it's kind of a reusable component when you create them. For example, currency converter. So whenever you need a currency converter, you have input and output. So it behaves like a kind of a reusable component. You create them and do the calculations, and you will have an output. Okay. A mapping designer is definitely, so mapping designer it's not a reusable component, whereas a maplet designer is a reusable component. You create the maplet and use in the mapping designer. As you can see that, workflow manager, it's basically manage the session and basically it creates all the tasks, what are being already created in the designer itself for the running perspective. And you also schedule them from here. So here is the one. First of all, I'll let you know, whichever tool in Informatica, you can simply go and run any tool from here as the top, R, D, W, M. So R for repository, D for designer, M for workflow, M for manager. So WM, so you can directly call them here. So this is a client application. So this is the connection. So when you run with the database from one to another, you need to set the connection, which is a FTP connection or relational connection and whatsoever. Then you got a navigation window, so you can navigate them along with your session and worklets and workflow. So worklet is kind of similar with maplet. So you create one sample worklet which always have to flow each time. You can reutilize everywhere. You got a status bar here. Output window talks about how it's happening, the performance, and definitely you got a workflow designer tools available, task developer and a workflow designer and so on. Okay, carrying forward. So this is already know what are being happening. So you can have tabs really do savings, validations, compings, and so on. So when you do a practical, you get to know more rather than a talking on a template basis. So you can see a kind of a designer which really creates the task and task for the worklets. Task developers basically actual task which talks about it can be reusable by an email or session or as a kind of a command prompt, executions. Worklet designer, as I said, it can be reusable into the workflow. You can create here something and then you can reutilize all the time here. So here is a look like how the basically Informatica runs a workflow. You start the task, you have a start, you can see here, this is the red. So it can be having some error or maybe some confirmation and warning. So you can see that there's some parallel work is going on and this is called a session task and this is exactly a link. So you can see the workflow manager, you know, how's the workflow manager, how basically workflow happens. So you can see there, task, session, workload, workflow within the folder. So those are again a repository folder, which is being there in repository. So whichever workflow you're making here, session here, it basically primarily storing in your repository metadata. So as already said, you know, you can have this task, you can have link, and you have a task session. So this is start where you have to link with the task. Which task you want to start? So this is the link which is available here. So once you have a start, and you have to link, you know, manually. You can simply go and do that. It can be automatic as well. Whereas you're defining a task and you want to just say start the run. So here is the scheduling. You can schedule to the server. It can be reusable. It can be non-reusable. It can be runtime only. It can be once. So you can do the scheduling part of your PowerCenter designing, whatever ETL map you've done that. What monitor does, as already said, you know, you can see in the site there's a talking here. So let's talk about. You can see that what are the maps has been running in. What are the time, how is the status, connected, not connected, and then you can see the actual, you know, task running in. So you can see that you have succeeded, closed, not closed, open, and you got a log here. So you can open the log. So let's get more in detail. So the task view looks like you have a workflow, you have a start time, you have a completion time, you have a status. So this is the monitor. So whatever task you've been already there in the workflow, which session, what are the start time, what are the end time, and whether it's got succeed or fail, then definitely the statuses are coming in. It talks about how it's being running towards step by step. Then believe it or not, you have complete logs. You can see that, you know, monitor wise step by step, you can see that, you know, how's things happening. So this monitor will help you the success and failure together. So monitor workflows, it can restart. You can just restart from here itself. You can see the left side, all the buttons are available. You can restart, you can stop, you can abort, and you can recover if it has happened any failure altogether. So there would be a timeout also set when the failure happens, and automatically by some certain minutes, like a 60-second timeout, it restarts the workflow. Okay. So when it comes to a log, so you can see that get session, you select the session and right button, it comes to a get log. It gives you the log like this, the, you know, severity, timestamp, you know, which node is running, which is a server node, threads, and also a message and its description. You can definitely do a filter if need, you know, all these statuses failed running and whichever you want to be, you know, wanted to see that. So this was primarily from, you know, how Informatica does and what are the components of Informatica. What we'll do in the Informatica course, if we talk about. So let me tell you, it's Informatica course. What we offer is your development and as well as your administration with security. It is not only a development. Okay, you design it and you go, it's done, it's over. No, we do it a little bit more than that, and we do more robust training. So you'll have Informatica as an overview. We have an ETL fundamental. So we have altogether 16 modules, and each module has a, you know, presentation slides, which is covering at least 40 to 60 slides minimum as the training point of view. Then we talk about ETL as a fundamental. What are the ETL? What are the type of ETLs available? Data warehouse concepts in terms of a star schema, a snowflake schema, how dimensions are there, what are the facts, you know, what are the factless fact. So those fundamental we talk about. It might take one session, it might take two sessions, depends on the audience understanding, and we'll prefer to make them everybody understand because this is very basics. Then we actually come to a PowerCenter designer where you have seen how you have to go and design your source, your transformation, your target. You can, you know, import the target, you can create the target sitting in Informatica itself. You can re-import if necessary. Then as you've seen your workflow manager and monitor, which is the next module. Then advanced transformation, as somebody have already mentioned, we know the basics, but yes, if you talk about XML, how are you going to use that? If you know the Java, how are you going to do the Java coding in Informatica itself? So there's a transformation available. For example, data quality, you need to have a data profiling, which is coming here, right? Advanced transformation can be partitioning, can be parallelisms. So those you can do that. Cache management, little bit more than a normal development. Then we have, you know, parameter and sessions and variables. So in Informatica, you can use the simple static variable, or you can do a variable on the fly, which is a, you know, kind of you design, and you get the maximum date of your employee hire date, which you can take from the database, and you can utilize and do always less than a maximum date at the conditions. Debugging, troubleshooting, error handling, and recovery. It is a very important part. If you're being a developer, you should know how you can troubleshoot the error. You can debug them, you can recover them if any failure happens. Very much, the cache is most important. So cache is basically a temporary place used in hard disk or memory, which is being done by Informatica architecture. There would be cache directory being allocated when you either install or when you run the map. You can definitely change them if it is needed. Or you can use a customer's client's cache directory rather than a server directory, which makes your Informatica move faster. This is the one of the tip which I've given you right now, which is we did it in industry. Performance tuning or optimization. So initially you made a ETL map which takes 5,000 rows only in 10 minutes. Then after 10 days, it's taking 15 minutes or maybe an hour. So you have to go and see what are the bottlenecks, where is the problem. So if you're doing an aggregation, summing of the data, are you using an assorted input? If not, then it's gone. So those things you have to go and optimize them. PowerCenter Repository Manager, one of the biggest and important place where you're doing all your metadata management. You need to do export, import, product making, folder making. You can have 3 different folders where you have one for development, one for testing, one for production migrations. So those can be done export and import here, and you can manage them. So administration, console, and security talks about more from a domain, node, security, user management, log management, and definitely, believe it or not, this is the one place where a person should go first and take a look how the Informatica architecture is there. You may not be getting a complete privilege from an administration side, but yes, to take a look of all the metadata things would be there. You can see your integration services, repository services working or not, or it has failed, or you can restart as a services. As I correctly mentioned, is an SOA based. Now next is technical architecture. So technical architecture of Informatica, we talk about more from how the individual nodes, how the cluster is happening, how the rollback segment taking place, how basically a failure makeover is happening. So it is like you have a robust technology architecture where we discuss more into it. And believe it or not, installation and operation manuals, a lot of people do at the beginning of, somewhere in designing. So we may help them during this session 2 and 3, module 2, 3, 4, or else people do it more from installation background, and they later in a more detailed way we'll talk about if it is somebody wants a Unix installation or Windows installation, we'll definitely help them to do that. Then command line utility, definitely then we have a command line how you can execute them in Informatica without kind of a scheduler. We'll talk about the scenario with the Informatica. We'll talk about a project and definitely best practices, whereas we have a velocity methodology comes across. So this is other topics which we cover more widely. As I said, it's not only development, it's development plus the administration. So let's talk about how do we do that. We have online live classes, right? So I'll show you a bit of them here. So people who are not aware, I'll just give you an idea. How do we normally, I take the classes over the weekend or, whichever class time is. So we have Edureka website. So I'll show you what exactly we do and how we take a class. So each person, each student, a candidate will have a user ID and password. It is easily created. You can create it simply from here. You can see that new user is very easy to create. And once you log in here, so you have to sign up that each session, each module, we have 2 things. One, we have a presentation. Another, we have a recorded session. So each day we take a class. Very next day, the recorded session is already there for you. You can, if you missed your class, you can see the recording altogether. Okay. So you can see that I have, I'm one of the teachers for this. So I get into a login and then I have taken a couple of classes. Those recordings are also available for the candidates. So you can see that this is the getting started where you have a learning guide. How basically this is called LMS, Learning Management, system. Then you got a pre-recorded session. So for example, I have taken a recording of first day. So those recording you can see here.
Try the workaround that is available, and yeah, I'll come here.
Fine. So this is what is happening. So even I do take it off the recording, so it will come.
try, the workaround.
So this is all the recorded for each session. Probably it comes into one by one. So if you let's say you missed one of them, you will come over and see, and you can take all the sessions one by one. So now you have a course content, whereas this is pre-recorded session, which is being an earlier one. Then the courses which I take every day, each course, each module, you can see that have two things. One, it has its own presentation, which is we have to view with the PPT, which I've just shown you, kind of similar, and then the class recording, which normally people does it, as I discussed. So this is what we take a recording. So what happens? You probably people get you help where if you miss something, you can go back and see your recording. So it's freely available for you guys.
And even the success, if any changes happens during any feature of
so this is the me, which you can see that this is the presentation coming in. So you get the presentation, and then we'll talk about more in detail for the recording session. So candidate can go and see their presentation as well as the recording session if they missed the classes. And okay, regardless, there was something else called a support ticket. So in case if you want to go get some installation done and you're having some issue, you simply go and create one of the, I said I have a installation issue, right? And you say I need to get some solution. So this is basically I'm writing a testing purpose. And then once you do this, if you have any screenshot, please attach here, log a ticket. Once you log a ticket, we have a 24/7 support team which goes to them and they'll help you. You can also get the status of your tickets here. You get to know what is the status of your tickets, and whereas you'll get the email to your concerned email ID. So you can see that these are the tickets. These are the open and closed, and for example, this is a closed one. I can still see that what are the people have replied. So I've asked few things, people have replied me back within 24 hours, and you can simply give them a kind of feedback you have. So this is from our live classes and a kind of a recording what we do. We, as already discussed, that we have a kind of online classes, recording, and 24 support. Module wise queues, yes, we do a lot of queues within the classes and after the classes. We have a project, kind of work, and definitely that's the end gonna be a verified certificate should be there. So now that's all from my side. I think I have not taken much time to give you a bit of more. Now we can have a question answer session. I think Praveen did ask me a question regarding ILM and CPG. So I'll try one thing. I'll unmute Praveen, and then we can discuss what exactly his question is, and probably we can talk about more. So Praveen, I've unmuted you. Can you hear us?
Yes.
So can you just elaborate what question you want to ask?
Can you go back to one more slide?
Oh, you want me to go back? Okay, here's this.
So I'm yet to see that slide where you discuss about these 4 areas of this one, correct. So can you just take a real-time example of this information lifecycle management as well as complex event processing? I mean, I was not able to understand how these products are used in real time.
Okay. To answer your question is, when you say an IT company, the IT company grows, a lot of information also grows. For example, when IT company has a 50 employee, the HR, the finance, the asset, the company administration data is almost limited. When it grows to 5,000, do you think the data also grows?
Yes.
Okay. To handle those data, you need to have again a kind of a life cycle management. So your process is also getting changed. The way you're taking an employment earlier when the capacity was 50 and the capacity is 5,000, there would be a process in place, right? So there's a complete life cycle change. You might have a format initially, now you're saying an online entry. So those kind of a data, how you get those data at one place, whereas life cycle is the one product which Informatica has, where it talks about each different stages and each different data, even from a legacy system. Does it answer your question, Praveen?
So in case of manufacturing industry, we have this ERP system, Enterprise Resource Planning. So this
Right.
is something similar to that?
Well, I would say no, because ERP talks about more from a transactional point of view. Here is going to be both. It can be transaction and data warehouse mined up together. Whereas ERP is kind of a specific to a non-subject area. Here you have a subject area. ERP can be finance, can be HR, and so on. So it's like you have your complete data for complete manufacturing unit, maybe a production, maybe a sales, and so on. So here it talks about a movement, not from one department to another, but one phase to another. Is it making sense?
Yep.
Okay, what is the next question? So I'll come to Mukund, to you as well. Give me a second. So Praveen, any more question you have?
Yeah. The next one also, complex event processing.
Mm-hmm.
Same, I mean, I was not clear on the concept and the real-time example.
Well, when you talk about, you see, it's saying complex event processing with real-time alert and insight to, patient information to operate as faster and efficient, competent way. See, it's very important when you have a kind of a real-time engine where you want to do a data of one place to another place. There would be an alert mechanism, right? So how the data is moving, your event is here where the event says, okay, one transaction is done, for example, your ATM. You scratch somewhere, you get your data, your account hits. So ATM has a different application, let me tell you, whereas your saving has a different application, whereas your GL has a different application. Is it making sense?
Yeah.
So one event has to tell other that, man, this amount is debited. So that one application sends event to another and the another sends to the next one. At the same time, every 1 minute and every 2 minutes, there would be consolidation happen at the target level. Whereas event processing comes in place. Does it make sense?
Yeah. So I mean, just a related question on that is, let's suppose if I have PowerCenter, I can be, I being a programmer can write my own events, right?
Let me tell you, CDC is the one program which is change data capture, which is a kind of a program which any changes happen on transaction, you can get the event-based data changed to your target. But that's a different product. That's a PowerCenter. Here he talks about all the events data. It can be event, it can be alert. So those alert can be as a data. How many alerts happen in a day? How many people have taken out the data? So that's talking about event processing. So event processing data, the actual data.
Okay. All right. Yeah, got you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll mute you back, whereas I'll take Mukund's data. Thank you very much. Hey Mukund. Are you there?
Hey, I'm sorry. Yes, I am, but I was in a meeting. That's why I just pinged my questions to you on chat.
No problem.
So if you can, those are things I would like to ask about. I'll just put my call on mute. Hold a second. These are things which I would probably like to learn. If you can see what I pinged there, as part of for getting into an advanced career on Informatica. These are the things which you commonly face during the interview, as well as other client requirements. So if you can tell me that if you would probably even touch upon these or let us know what it is on those things, that will help.
Can you come again? It was too fast. I didn't understand you. Your question says ILM thought, big data, Hadoop intro for ETL, data quality, PowerCenter certification, performance training. Okay.
So these are the things which I would like to probably be more abreast upon once the course is complete. I mean, I don't know about ILM, how much you taught.
Well, to answer your question, Mukund, we'll be covering almost all the areas from a development to administration. Also, we can cover big data. There would be a big data product for Informatica. It's called Informatica PowerCenter Express. You already know that.
Yeah.
Right? There would be data quality. So PowerCenter itself, inbuilt transformations are available where you can do a data quality.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you say performance tuning, yes, is very much important. But Informatica PowerCenter cannot create a logic. You need to go and get the bottleneck. For example, I've given one simple example. When you're doing an aggregation, if you're not using sorting, which is making a sorting before the aggregation, your aggregation, the cache cannot really build up more faster. So that's one of the logic, right? So those has to be developed when you're doing a tuning. For example, you having a kind of a parameter used in the file, and you do not go and change your parameter file, and you being always expecting your production to go and get the databases each time. In every week, the database gets changed. Then you should go use variable rather than using a parameter file.
Correct.
Hope you're understanding that. So the logic can be developed by us and has to be performed by Informatica at PowerCenter.
Correct, correct. Now, would you be talking about these things? In real time, what happens is the load times, decrease, right? They increase, and then we do into dropping of indexes, stuff like that. Other than partitioning and pipeline and all that, like PDO and stuff. So, at the database side also, we would do enable and disable index, collect stats. So, would you be at least touching upon all these while you talk about it, or it's? I just want to know.
Okay. To answer your question, Mukund, at the development and the training point, first of all, we go individual transformation and advanced transformation. When it comes to a kind of a project, which is a module 15 or 14 sometime, end of the project. So we'll talk about pre and post session. So what happens, for example, dropping index and creating index. So when you do a pre, you're dropping them. When you do a post, you're creating them, right?
Correct.
So those things will taken care when the project is done. And any specific thing you want to know that is always a privilege that you ask a question is being benefited for entire team.
Right.
So it may not be a team being too much, depth and can come with the question, or anybody ask any question is always helpful for a team. So we'll try to give you
questions which we are facing in our current project also. For example, I have issues now with FTP files that are coming in from New York. We are always having a problem with that. The files don't come on time, and Informatica itself is trying to do the FTP. There's an FTP connection provider also, right? So we are trying to grab the flat files.
All right, but it also depends what is the architecture you guys are following. I'll give you my kind of a solution. When I was working for Qantas Airways in Australia, I was a part of Australia team. And then Qantas has the biggest airways you must know in Australia, right? Sydney is the office they have, biggest office. And what is the problem they had? They had the ODS, operational data source, and they had a data replication every 2 hours. So what they need to do is they do a data replication every 2 hours from Sydney to Melbourne, right? And again, that ODS, again they read this from ODS and they again do Sydney to Melbourne. So twice they were using the same data because every 2 hours the data gets changed.
Okay.
And the report was 2 hours delay. So we have given two things. First, we have given let's not get into twice load because your network packets are harder, right? So what we have done, we have taken ODS directly from Melbourne to Sydney to Melbourne, no Sydney to Sydney. It is Sydney to Melbourne directly. So once ODS is there, and then after the data mapping, all the target and transformation can be taken place for a target reporting. So whereas we were saving at least 2.5 hours every day because the data can be taking more time than 2 hours, right? That was the one idea we have given. Also, we were talking about CDC, change data capture with the ODS, not from the production data.
Okay.
So there was a delay in 2 hours. This only was delay of 2.5 minutes. Can you believe it or not? And manager was so happy, and Informatica was there.
Right.
And that's what Informatica did it for us.
Oh, wonderful.
We have replicated SSIS. Don't take me wrong. Microsoft, we have replicated SSIS to Informatica. So that's what we've done it. So it's also depend what architecture. May not be OTP required, right? FTP may not be required. You may have a push mechanism. You may have a kind of messaging. So ultra messaging which Informatica gives you, or Microsoft messaging queue. So a lot of people use queuing data despite of FTP data.
Correct.
So there is always a tool can help you only when you build a logic. So people help you in the logic.
I understand.
Okay. Does it answer your question, Mukund?
Yeah, it does. I just want to know from the Informatica, there are standard guidelines for performance tuning and all that. So would you be touching upon it while you talk? That's fine.
Yes, we'll talk about a performance, cache management, troubleshooting very, very, very thoroughly. That's the aim of the training. So anybody can give you a 5 transformation and you already know that. What else you can know? How you can do a troubleshooting? How you do a debugging? And that's most important.
I'll probably tell this to the whole group. This will help you in your Informatica career if you're going to be there.
Makes sense, yeah. Thank you very much.
Almost every project you have to face it.
Yeah. This is the reality of the world.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. So, on my next few things, I'm sorry, I was on a call, that's why I had to jump in.
Please go ahead.
XML, so these are the other things we are employing more and more now. XML transformations, web service, hub and consumer, and Java transformations. I really haven't worked on this at any time, to be very frank, even though I've been in this for some time. I haven't done these much. And also now the things are going towards deployment groups, right, to install the code and team-based development. And as when you spoke about dev, QA, and prod, we have OS profiles different for different Linux servers, because we have a Linux grid that is running here in Cisco, where I'm currently doing some projects. So all these things, if you can touch about, it will be helpful for the team as well, because they'll understand what real time is. Or you'll have a different OS profile for a dev, for a, QA. You can put that OS profile in, I think, in the admin console somewhere, right?
Makes sense, Mukund. So probably the people who are from a different background, like a SharePoint and all. So what we can do, let's take your basics first, go to the advanced level, and then we'll go for a next level, what we're talking about. Does it really helps you?
Yeah, it does. As long as it's covered, I'll be very happy.
I will definitely try the levels, because a lot of people may not be understanding that, and the people who are interested still will go ahead and touch at the end of the session.
Yeah, and the last couple of things are, administrating the nodes, the Tomcat log and all that, because I've been facing that here. In a resource crunch, they also try to ask you if you can do some basic admin work in small projects, because they can't afford an admin and a developer at the same time. Basic admin, if it's a small node and for a small in-house.
Yeah, when you do an administration console, so creating user folders, repository management is going to be there. So administration is very much available.
Okay.
So you may not be doing an exhaustive domain and node setting, which goes to infrastructure guys. Will not nobody will let you do that.
Yeah. Okay, but when you spoke about the admin here, would you talk about installing the Informatica and setting up the admin console?
Yeah, very much. Installations are part of a module installation, architecture design, and those are there. Definitely we are doing it. So you can see one of the module at the end.
Informatica with the binary, is it? With the binary provided, which you get from somewhere?
Can you come again? What is the question?
So as part of this course, will we be installing Informatica client? Of course, it will run by itself. But, will we talk about the server install as well?
Yeah. See, Informatica is the entire product. It's not an Informatica. I'm talking about a PowerCenter product, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So
Sorry,
you'll have Informatica administration console. You'll have the installation and operations asset, and also to talk about how you do the repository creation, integration services. We'll create them and show them.
Correct. Sounds fine.
Right.
And finally, my two questions were, I'm trying to work towards the 9.x certification, because I'm already 8.x. So anything that you can help us towards the certification, or what we can expect, because I haven't really seen that for some time now. And also any interview questions, people will ask.
Definitely try to help you as much we can do from certification point of view. We have an education team, we have a support team, we have a course content management team. So Edureka is a bigger company, we're doing always in online training, and we'll definitely help you in that. Yeah.
And the interview questions also, if you have any common interview questions and stuff.
Definitely, when I talk to you in a practical session, we'll talk about. Meanwhile, each modules we'll talk about, and at the end of the session, definitely yes. Right. We'll talk about support tickets you can raise if you have any specific questions, or if not, you can ask me at the same time during the courses itself.
This course is taught on the weekend, is it, or the weekday?
I think weekdays is also there. Weekend is also there. Most of the people have been following weekends, I believe. So you can talk to the
during these times, I'll have to catch up on the recording, because I'll be at work like now. Now I could take some time. But hopefully, if it's all recorded, as you said, then I can always catch up and get back.
And I've already shown you my recorded session are there, so people who miss the class, they can go and see that.
Okay, that's my questions. Thanks for this.
Thank you very much, Mukund, and pleasure talking to you. So anybody else has any questions, and probably I'm happy to answer them. And as I think a couple of people have asked a few very good and great questions, and I believe that may solve your questions internally, which might have thought of before similar question. So I would say great, and thank you very much. I think yes, Praveen says, how about hands-on? Pradeep, to answer your question is, we have module 15 and 16, especially for the project's work. So we are talking about hands-on. And that's what Mr. Mukund was talking about. Does it answer your question, Praveen? Praveen, I can unmute you. You are unmuted, Praveen. You can talk now.
Yeah. So, thanks for the overview about this Informatica. My question about hands-on is, I understand that, we will be seeing the video, but will we be getting, any IDE, this Informatica IDE to do the hands-on?
Okay, we'll provide you software which is freely available on Oracle website for this education purpose. So you need to go and simply create the user ID password, which is freely available. You need to download them. So we'll help you to install those software. And we also give you a support team, which is working in 24/7. And they'll help you to do the installation, and you can do hands-on of yourself. And then as individually each modules, we'll talk about a practical things, and we'll give you a session as well to do the practice. Does this answer your question, Praveen?
Yes, you're talking about the Express edition, right?
Excuse me? I'm talking about a PowerCenter.
Express edition.
In Express edition, we talk about a data integration.
No, when
9.6.1. That's what I'm talking about. We're not using a PowerCenter Express. We're using a data center.
no, but when you say we'll go on the Oracle website and download the software, that means the Express edition, right?
No, it's basically full edition available, which is a free of cost for only for education perspective. So we'll share you the link.
All right. And one more question: which database you will be referring? I mean, is it Oracle or is it SQL?
Whichever you proficient with, we will help you to connect with Oracle, SQL, flat file, whichever you're being happy.
Okay, got you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Haren says, does PowerCenter allow connection to social media analytics and emotions analysis? Yes, Haren, that's the answer to you. It gives you the connector. It also connects with the ACP. So anybody else has a question? So it's been it's been overall a pleasure, and I really felt very good, and you must have also gone good questions and answer. Thank you, Arend. Thank you very much for joining this session, and we'll appreciate to see you forward. Looking forward for a training together, and definitely we will give you better than what we will be doing today. Thank you very much. Have a nice day ahead, and have a good night to you. Thank you very much.